In this video, I'm going to share with you a keynote presentation in Monterey, California for the California Workforce Association. Enjoy.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bob. How's everyone doing? Awesome. I am so excited to be here in Monterey. I actually live in Santa Cruz, California right now, so not too far away. So let's get this started. By show of hands, who experiences stress from time to time? Yeah, that's what I thought. You can put your hands down. We're all stressed, right? Especially in the past few years with the lockdowns, the pandemic so much. If anything, it really opened our eyes to what's going on within? What's my emotional state? What's my purpose? All these sorts of things. And in a lot of ways, to be honest with you guys, sometimes I feel like I got activated because for me, that deep, dark night of the soul started in 2019, and that was just a few years ago. So I'd like to just show you a few things so you guys get a better understanding of who I am and what I'm about. But for a long time, I was chasing success. You can see pictures here of me doing triathlons with 49ers VPs, receiving the Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 at just age 31 years old. And I had all of these different successes, but like Bob said in the intro, I was unfulfilled. And really, I was unhappy. And it wasn't until I started to go on this deep dive of a journey of going within that I realized that I was numbing myself with distractions. I was on a hamster wheel of chasing dopamine hit after dopamine hit, of achieving success. Can we relate to that? Anyone here in the room as business professionals relating to that? Come on, I know there's some more people in that. There we go. Yeah, don't be shy. We're here to be community, right? We're here to network together, to connect with each other. So thank you for sharing with that. So here are a few of the different projects I've had through the course of my career, a lot of content creation and things like that. But like I mentioned, it really set me on this dark night of the soul. Rewinding back to 2019, in about March of 2019, I had these sleepless nights. Literally, I would go to sleep for about a month and I wouldn't really, go to sleep, I guess go to bed, because I wouldn't really get any sleep. And I'd wake up in the morning with energy, but not energy like, oh, I'm ready to go on a run or anything like that. Just this alertness, this numbing depression. And that's when I decided I can't hide from this anymore and I need to go inward. And yoga was my saving grace. I practiced meditation and yoga. I started going to yoga at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. And what I found in yoga is that it's so much more than the asanas, the postures, the movement. Really, with yoga, there's 8 different limbs or branches of yoga. And just one of those 8 branches is the movement. Do we have any yogis in the room? A few? Well, I'm going, what's that? Pilates, sure, yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to teach you guys something that I love. Now I'm a yoga instructor, fast forwarding a few years from 2019. But this lion right here, we're going to practice lion's breath. And I'm not going to force you guys to do anything, so you can just watch me and laugh if you want. But I'm going to invite you to engage with this because this is actually an ancient yogic practice that can help to give us energy. And also, since we're here in community, to not just take ourselves so seriously, and just be humans, right? And connect on a deeper level than the suits and ties that we often wear. Does that sound good? All right, so I'm going to show you guys how to do it first, and then we'll do it together. Does that work? All right, I see nods. I'm digging it. Sweet. So watch me. Big inhale through the nose. Then I'm going to look at my nose, and I'm going to stick out my tongue, and I'm going to exhale through the mouth. So here we go. You guys want to try that? All right. So start with getting rooted. Feel your feet on the floor. I hear some excitement and some chatter going. That's okay, but let's settle down. Let's settle down, guys. I know it's exciting, and I'm happy that we're excited, but let's start to go within, bringing it down, closing the eyes maybe, feeling the bottoms of your feet on the earth, getting rooted. And if you want to open your eyes when you do this, actually, let's all open our eyes. Start to stare at your nose, going a little cross-eyed, put your tongue out, and inhale up and let it out. How'd that feel? That's a practice you guys can take with you at any point in your day, in your life, where it's just a good reminder not only to connect with our breath, but also not take ourselves so seriously, because it's not that serious at the end of the day, and oftentimes we overcomplicate it by taking ourselves more seriously. And this is the practice of soul-life balance that I'm going to introduce you guys to today. So, first things first, let's talk about the archetypal energies of yin and yang, or said another way, yang. So basically, yin is this, let's start with yang. Yang energy is obligations, it's structure, it's the five senses of how we walk through life and experience the world. And a lot of this relates to our responsibilities, whereas that yin energy is your inner world. It's when you close down your eyes. It's when you hear that hint, that whisper of intuition. It's receptivity, intuition, and flow. So really, what I like to talk about here is kind of work-life balance, right? So if we think about work-life balance, because it's something that we all want to chase and to achieve, and it's something I did achieve. I built $1 million company while working less than 4 hours a day in Silicon Valley. I had work-life balance. I was working less than 4 hours a day. I had it. Yeah, I was unhappy and unfulfilled. Why? Because I was disconnected from my soul. And I'm not going to introduce any dogma or get too woo or esoteric. So when I say soul or spirituality or anything like that at all, we can simply replace that with our inner world, our psychological state, our emotional state, the state of our nervous system. So with work-life balance, now that we know about this yang energy, that is how we show up in the world, obligations, responsibilities. If we look at our life, or if we look at work, it's so clear that's the yang energy, right? Because we have deadlines, we have projects, we have tasks, we have all these different things that keep us going. Well, in our life, it's not that different, right? We also have that yang energy. If you have kids, maybe it's taking care of your kids, getting them to school. Maybe it's your pets. Hopefully taking care of your health, getting to doctor appointments, maybe working out at the gym, all of these things. The point is, with work-life balance, it's double yang energy. There's so much going on of how we show up that we forget to take care of ourselves. And this is why it's so important to bring more flow and yin into your life. And that's going to be really what we're talking about over the course of these next 30 minutes or so. So here are some journaling prompts, and feel free to bust out your phones and take a picture of the screen. And these are something that can help you to go within and find that connection of your inner world with yin. And journaling is just, as you take a picture, I'll just tell you guys a little bit about journaling, but journaling is such a great practice. You know, these days, whether it's personal development or soul development, you hear a lot about journaling. And the reason is because if you practice something like daily pages or morning pages, which the author Julia Cameron speaks about in her book, The Artist's Way, you can actually find out how you're feeling simply through journaling. It's a practice of what's called stream of consciousness writing, where you either write 3 pages or you journal for 20 minutes. And when you start, if you're anything like me, you might be writing and being like, I don't know why I'm doing this, all these negative thoughts, right? Like, this isn't working, this is dumb, this is silly, whatever. But if you actually commit to it, and you continue to write those 3 pages or 20 minutes, what you will find is layers underneath all of that. Because what you're doing is you're purging all these thoughts. You're getting rid of all these thoughts just through writing. At the end of those 20 minutes or 3 pages, whichever comes first, there's going to be something there where it's a moment of clarity, a moment of bliss, a moment of understanding. So journaling is such a powerful practice to bring into your flow. So the second thing is soul-life balance. We kind of got into work-life balance a little bit. So again, when I say soul, easily replaceable with inner world, emotional state, psychological state, your state of your nervous system. This is bringing in that yin energy. This is about putting yourself first, always. And it is not selfish to put yourself first, because if you are going about your day taking care of other people, your family, your colleagues, the different people in your respective agencies and communities that you're taking care of, but you're not taking care of yourself, you're not showing up to your fullest expression, your fullest capacity. So we want to fill our cups up first, or the metaphor of what we hear a lot, well, not really a metaphor, it's a real thing, but hopefully we'd never be in this situation on our airplane, but putting our oxygen mask on first before helping someone else. So that is the practice of soul-life balance, putting yourself first and foremost and realizing that you're living just one life, recategorizing work as part of your life. Now, any fans in here of the show on Apple called Severance? I see some hands, not that many. Okay, so in the show, no spoilers, this is the premise of the show, but basically there's an operation that gets done to people. You have a choice, right? You can go to work and know nothing about your personal life. And when you go home, you know nothing about your work life. So in that show, that is the only way you would have a work life and a personal life, right? Makes sense? Otherwise, you're just living this one life. So this notion of, oh, in my personal life or my work life, it kind of bleeds over. And one last point I want to make about work-life balance. Now, this is very fascinating. This is a thought experiment. But the W in work comes after the L in life, right? Well, if you start to think about other common phrases, you'll see that usually the letter that's closer to the A, if you have a phrase like work-life balance, that word would come first, meaning that it would be life-work balance, where subliminally, subconsciously, you're putting your life before work, right? So that's something you can reflect on later. And for that very reason, that's why it's soul-life balance, to put our soul, our connection to our inner world first. So the mental health crisis. You know, I don't expect I'm going to give you guys any stats that you don't already know, but this is important to address nonetheless. So first things first, by show of hands, do you know what this what these numbers represent? Not that many. So we're going to get a little deep here for a second, but we have to. It's important to go here. So the numbers 988 are a hotline that redirect to a suicide hotline. This was made the case just over a year ago in July of 2022. Now, this is amazing, don't get me wrong. It's amazing that there's such an easy resource that if, for God forbid, if you're thinking about taking your own life, you can easily reach a hotline. However, this is extremely disturbing. We're now at the state that our mental health crisis has gotten so severe that we create a hotline with 3 numbers to quickly get to a suicide hotline looking for support. And that scares me. That is frightening and that is serious stuff. I remember when I was a little kid learning about the numbers 911. And it was earth-shattering for me because that's when I learned that the world isn't a safe place. Now, it's not just our coworkers, everyone in this room that has access, that's living in this world of having the numbers 988, but in addition to that, our children are growing up in this world, not only with the numbers 911, but now 988. Now, I'm not okay with that. Raise your hand if you're not okay with that. Right? It's great that we have this, but we need to take steps to reclaim our mental health and get connected. So this is what we're going to get into, the real meat and potatoes of this talk right here. And before we do, a few more stats. You can check these out and take a picture if you'd like, but I bring up the ages here of 10 to 24 as opposed to picking out some executive suicidal stats, because there's a lot of disturbing stats about business professionals in suicide. But I bring up the ages of 10 and 24 because many of us in this room have children or nieces or nephews or whatever the case may be. It's the next generation. And this goes back to taking care of yourself first. If you can take care of yourself, you're going to show up for your family and the next generation better. So it's so important that we do that. Work-related suicide indicators that you can look out for, social and psychological pain. The solution is to reestablish meaningful connection with others and yourself. So this is what we're going to do, and this is why you guys are all here for the meeting of minds, right? To work together, to get rooted in community towards success. So the action item here is simple. What if there's just one thing you could do on a daily basis to feed your soul? What if you could do one thing for yourself? Now, for a lot of us, we might do something for ourselves once a month, hopefully not once every few months, right? Maybe every few weeks, but can we move towards once a day? Maybe waking up in the morning and before you go to your phone to answer emails or put out any fires, maybe just putting your palm on your heart, feeling your heartbeat, saying, how can I love myself today? Right? Just these simple things, a few deep breaths. And that's really one of the biggest pieces that I'd like for you to get from this speech today. What is one thing that you can do to feed your soul on a daily basis? Now, here are some different reasons why you might want to meditate. And I love meditation. I would never speak bad about meditation. I think it's absolutely incredible. Yet at the same time, meditation is about noticing your thoughts and then clearing your mind, saying, hey, that's a thought, let it go. That's a thought, let it go. What I'm going to teach you a little bit later is about how to reprogram limiting beliefs into limitless, empowering beliefs and really restructure your subconscious mind. And we'll get into that in a bit. Here are a few other practices. Feel free to take a picture of this as well. We have contemplation, reflection, which is what I'm talking about with subconscious limiting beliefs. We'll get into that. Breath work, we will get into that. We talked about journaling a little bit. Yoga is incredible. When I say earthing, we're here in Monterey, California. Like, get out to the beach, take your shoes off, feel that sand, have the water hit your feet, enjoy it. That is earthing. Feel the connection to this planet that is spinning around, right? And then eye contact, that's a simple one that we often overlook. And it starts with your coworkers. You know, so often like we're not really making eye contact. We're looking at the nose, the forehead, the mouth, but see into the gate of the soul through the eyes. Very simple practice. It's not always like doing another thing, like let me do this meditation or breath work. Sometimes it's the simple things. So this is one of my favorite topics, the nervous system and breath work. When I first started down this journey of exploring my inner world, it started with what's called a breath work journey. Just you and your breath for 60 to 90 minutes, where it's designed to shift you into a sympathetic nervous system, meaning fight or flight, as opposed to parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And it's about releasing stored trauma within the body. So before we get into breath work, I want to give you guys a tool that you can take back to your offices, and this is a great way to regulate your own nervous system and connect with others that you're working with. And it is the acronym WIFL, what I feel like expressing. So basically, what you would do is when you're beginning a meeting, you know, we all have that little chatter before the meeting starts where, how's your day going? You know, just like the little small talk, whatever. This is giving a name to it and creating a formal structure to it. So we're not asking everyone to share before we start a meeting, but we're creating the space to share if someone would like to. And the way I love to describe how WIFL, what I feel like expressing, works is like, say I spilt coffee and I was late to do something, or you were, and maybe the kids were being disruptive, to say it that way. Whatever the case is, something that threw you off and now you're feeling more stressed than you normally would. Or maybe you have a big meeting later in the day and you come into this meeting kind of annoyed, dejected, and the body language says it all, right? So if you create the space for a WIFL, you say, hey guys, I'm sorry, like I'm just a little distracted, there's some things going on, and whatever it is, just 30 to 60, 90 seconds. Keep it short. This isn't a 5-10 minute share, it's not a deep dive, it's just, hey, my mind isn't present, and I just wanted to share this with you. Now all of a sudden, people aren't going in their mind, what's wrong with Sam? Why has he got such an attitude? You know, they're like, oh, it builds compassion. I see what he's going through. So it's a way to be seen and heard with your community, and it gives permission for others to share as well. And this is how we connect human to human in the workplace. So this is a great tool to use when you're back in the office and working with your colleagues or anyone else. So the science of breath work, I kind of said this pretty quick, so I'm going to say again. The sympathetic nervous system has nothing to do with sympathy. The sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. It's what was so useful for us when we needed to fight off saber-toothed tigers, whereas the parasympathetic nervous system is about rest and digest. So we should be living in a state of rest and digest. But because of Western culture, we all live in California, right? California Workforce Association, we're all business professionals. We already know that we're consumed with that yang energy, which is consuming our lives, disconnected from our inner world. All that type of stuff is throwing our nervous system out of whack and putting us in a constant state of sympathetic, which means fight or flight. We should be in parasympathetic, rest and digest. So we'll go through some tools where we can help to shift that on a daily basis so that we are feeling more calm and ease and relieving that anxiety. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys about is mouth versus nose breathing. So there's an amazing book called Breath by James Nestor, and he talks about how so many of us breathe through the mouth. And luckily for me, at least, when I was a little kid and I'd go to the dentist, I'd always puke. Like, you're wondering, how is that lucky, right? Well, I had to learn to breathe through my nose because I would always gag when I was little. So for me, breathing through the nose is fine. But believe it or not, a lot of Americans and people around the world really suffer from mouth breathing. And when you breathe through the mouth, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system, which we know is fight or flight. Breathing through the nose is a great practice to start to shift into rest and digest. So the other thing is diaphragmatic breathing. So just for a second here, go ahead and do a big inhale through your nose. And then exhale. Did you notice if your belly expanded or did your belly come to your spine? Expanded. Anyone have their belly come to their spine? Come on, I know there's more people that did. But inhale again, go ahead. Notice if the belly comes in or it goes out. For a lot of us, the belly's coming in towards the spine. And it makes sense because when you're inhaling, you're coming inward, right? You're inhaling, and we're thinking, bring it in. Plus, so many of us, myself included, are trying to tighten up, right? And we don't want to show off our belly. But actually, the correct way to breathe is diaphragmatic breathing, where we expand our belly like if it's blowing up a balloon. So the way I like to visualize it is see in your mind's eye just an empty balloon, right? There's nothing in it. How do you actually get air into it? You blow into it, right? So when you're pushing air into it, the balloon expands. Same thing with our bodies. When we inhale, we're going to expand our belly. So go ahead and inhale again and really think about pushing out your belly. And then exhale, bring the belly to the spine. Did we notice a difference? Yeah, right? Yeah. So that's diaphragmatic breathing. These are just simple things that you can start to do on a daily basis, just noticing how you're breathing. Maybe you're sitting in the audience now, maybe there's a business meeting, maybe it's a tough conversation with a loved one or a boss or a constituent of your demographic, anything like that at all, and you're starting to feel stress, anxiety, maybe anger, hopefully not rage, but you're starting to feel these emotions coming up, right? That's a great time to come back to your breath. And we don't have to be weird about it and be like, nothing like that, right? It's just these subtle shifts. Be like, oh, am I shallow breathing? Let me just bring some intentionality to it. That's all it is. So the cyclic sigh, any podcast fans in the room? We got a few. So Dr. Andrew Huberman runs the Huberman Lab podcast. He is a neuroscience professor at Stanford, and his podcast is blown up. If you like geeking out on science and things like that, like me, you would love the Huberman Lab podcast. And he did a deep dive a few months ago on the nervous system and breath work. It's almost a 3-hour listen, and I've listened to it so many times, I've studied it. But basically, the biggest takeaway that I'd like to share with you guys here today is that his lab, the Stanford lab, compared different forms of breathwork practices and meditation practices to see which one of these different modalities would actually relieve anxiety and stress the most. And what they found was the cyclic sigh is the #1 practice to relieve stress and anxiety. So you guys want to learn it? Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and do it. So we're all sitting down. I'm used to teaching yoga, by the way, so it's like find a comfortable seat, but you're already sitting down, so we'll just skip that part because you're sitting down. Elongating the spine, sitting up straight. There we go. If you have something on your lap, you might want to put it underneath you. And I'm just going to lead you into a short little meditation before we do the cyclic sigh. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, great. If you don't, that's okay too. And let's begin by just rolling out the neck. And as you roll out the neck, thinking slow is good. Slow it down, guys. Just slow it down. I see some of you moving so fast. We're here to slow things down. Slower the better. So as you roll the neck out, thinking about inhaling as the neck comes back and exhaling as the neck comes forward. That's it, just like that. And switching directions. Slow is good. Coming back to neutral. Finding an inhale, lifting up those shoulder blades. And exhaling, placing the shoulder blades back down behind you. There we go. Finding a big inhale through the nose. Sipping a bit more air through the nose. And through the mouth, exhale, let it go. On this next inhale, letting the belly expand, diaphragmatic breathing, bringing that breath all the way up as the belly expands. Sip in a bit more air at the top. Through the mouth, exhale, shoulders drop, belly to spine. There we go. Another like that. Inhaling up, belly expands. Sipping in a bit more air at the top. And through the mouth, sighing it out. Letting your breath return to the natural rhythm. And when you're ready, flickering your eyes back open. How'd that feel? So that is the cyclic sigh. It's basically, as you just experienced, inhaling through the nose about 90%, and then inhaling all the way up from there. Hold for a second, then exhale through the mouth. A few things to note. One, on the inhale, make sure you're practicing diaphragmatic breathing, which we already learned. There's a reason why we learned that first, right? So as you inhale, let the belly expand, bringing that breath all the way up to the chest, sipping in a bit more, and through the mouth, exhale, shoulders drop, belly comes back to the spine. One of those is called the physiological sigh. And what happens is when we experience stress or any sort of quick emotion, our body just naturally does that. That's what the lab found. And what the lab found is that one physiological sigh, if we repeat it multiple times and practice that on a daily basis for, say, a week or two, then we'll start to notice that we're going to relieve stress and anxiety. So the physiological sigh becomes the cyclic sigh when we do it in a cycle, right? So if you want to take that home with you, super easy practice, inhaling through the nose, about 90%, and then sipping a bit more, exhale through the mouth. Put your timer on for maybe 30 seconds to start, and work your way up to 5 minutes if you can. You'll notice if you commit to it, if you challenge yourself to do it for the next 3 to 5 days, you'll start to see some shifts. And what's amazing about putting a practice like this into your daily routine is when the heat of the moment comes up, because we cannot avoid the heat of the moment, your body almost naturally kicks into this parasympathetic nervous system. It's like, oh, I know what to do. And I'm speaking from experience here. So we just did that. So breathwork is good for business. Here's a few notes as well. I didn't tell you guys about breathwork journeys. I alluded to it and I mentioned, but I'd like to take this moment here now to talk about breathwork journey. So breathwork is really just such a big topic right now. It's a trending topic, and what we just practiced is breathwork. And if you go to a yoga class, a meditation class, anything like that at all, a lot of these different modalities are breathwork. Many of you may be familiar with box breathing, inhaling up, holding, and then exhaling, holding at the bottom, and you're creating a box. Maybe alternate nostril breathing, things like that. All of these are amazing. They're about shifting into parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. Yet, however, at the same time, it's really important to learn about the breathwork journeys, because the breathwork journeys mimic a trauma response. We're basically like dropping ourselves into those videos when we've seen a lion chase a gazelle, and if the gazelle is lucky enough to make it out alive, what does the gazelle do? Kind of convulses, right? The gazelle shakes and it's convulsing, because what it's doing is it's removing that trauma from the body. And it's very important to not compare your trauma. We all experience trauma. So we all have trauma stored in our body. And these deep breathwork journeys aren't just about getting the everyday stressors and anxiety and everything else out of the body that gets stored in it, but it's also an opportunity to go into that deep dive of repressed memories and different things where the body is still holding on to it. So next, we'll get into understanding your subconscious mind. This is such a, we're going to geek out on some science, but I'm going to do my best to simplify it. So first things first, neuroscience teaches us that we have 70,000 thoughts a day. Now, 80% of those thoughts are from the day before. And the real kicker is 90% of those thoughts are negative. So that means if we don't bring awareness to our conscious mind, then we're living in a negative feedback loop. Groundhog's Day over and over again, right? So that's why it's so important to bring awareness to how you feel. So you might be thinking to yourself, what is the subconscious mind anyways? I've heard of that before, but what exactly is it? So wiggle your left toe, your big toe. You can wiggle it, right? Now you have conscious awareness of it. You actually had conscious awareness of that before I said it, but you weren't aware to it. The subconscious represents left big toe is because subconsciously you could feel that. But now that I shine a light on it and told you to wiggle it, now your conscious mind's coming in. So going back to these thoughts right here of this negative feedback loop that we're on, how can we bring the subconscious conscious? That's what I'm going to teach you guys here today. And before we get into that, the 90-second rule. Now, Mel Robbins is an amazing keynote speaker. She talks about the 5-second rule. And the 5-second rule is like, you know, I did an ocean plunge this morning and a cold plunge and all that sort of stuff. I love doing that stuff. And I don't really need to do it anymore, but to get started, going into like an ice bath, like 30-degree water, you might be like, oh man, that's really cold. Why would I do that, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jump in, right? That's the 5-second rule. It's when one of those things that you don't really want to do, but you're there to do it. It's to motivate you. Or maybe getting out of bed in the morning and you hit snooze and you're trying to break that cycle. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm just waking up, right? So that very much is that yang energy. It's how we show up, right? Where the 90-second rule is the yin energy. It's about how do I feel on the inside. It's about slowing down. And science teaches us that our body has a 90-second physiological response that happens when we experience an emotion. I'll say that again. When we experience an emotion, whether it's sadness, it's grief, it's anger, it's experiencing depressive type symptoms, whatever the thing is, our body actually has a 90-second physiological response. But what do we do as adults? When we feel an emotion, we will do anything to not feel it. For me, my vice is food. You know, you guys should see me eating pistachios. I'll grab a bag of pistachios and I have a trash can right here. And, well, it's a nice trash can. It's like a really nice one and it just comes out like this and it's got like, you know, drawers. So it's not weird, dirty trash can, but I have the pistachios right there and I'm just cracking them. I'm just cracking them, like throwing them in my mouth. And for whatever reason, I'm feeling like I'm earning them because I have to crack them. Right? Right? But really what I'm doing is I'm not wanting to feel. I'm numbing myself. I'm distracting myself with food. And it's a constant work in progress. At least I have the awareness around it. But there's so many different ways we will distract ourselves because we don't actually want to feel the emotion. What you can do when you feel this heaviness of an emotion is maybe close your eyes and come back to that cyclic sigh. And again, we're not going to go crazy here and be like, let me put my timer on for 90 seconds and okay, I'm good. It's not about that. It's about feeling. So when you're experiencing something, these emotions, know that emotions are energy in motion. Emotions are energy in motion. So when that emotion comes through, can you slow down? Can you feel it and then process it and let it go? Otherwise, that emotion that is energy in motion gets stuck and stored in the body. So yes, we have these big T traumatic events that have happened over the course of a lifetime, but on a daily basis, there's so many little things. Like I invite you guys for the rest of today just to notice how you feel and what emotions are coming up. And can you soften and feel into that? Because when we don't feel into that, it just adds more layers that we're going to need to address further on. So that's why this is a practice. We get an opportunity to practice every day, right? How am I feeling? So connecting with the thoughts within. Now, there's an amazing psychotherapy practice called IFS, Internal Family Systems. Richard Schwartz developed this practice of IFS, Internal Family Systems, also known as parts work. Man, I just said a lot, you guys. If you're going to write something down, write IFS and parts work and ignore the internal family systems, because the internal family systems part of this is what throws people off. If we just think about it as parts work, we're able to conceptualize it a little bit more. And the reason is we're starting to build relationships with the different thoughts that come in our head, the different parts of ourself. There's an amazing spiritual book. It's like a foundational book if this content is interesting to you. It's called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And he does such a good job about talking with the roommate in your head. Like, we all know that. Like, there's another voice in there, right? We all know that. You're not alone. I'm not weird. You're not weird. Like, that is the case. Well, what I love about parts work is it takes that to the next level. It's saying not only is there another voice in your head, there's multiple parts. So what I like to do with parts work is really to think of myself as the king of my inner kingdom. So if I'm sitting in meditation and I'm slowing down, it's almost like Game of Thrones or one of those shows, right? And it could be king or queen for your queendom, and someone's coming up and they just want to speak, right? So I'm sitting here, I see myself in my throne, I'm hearing this part and I'm being with it. And then what happens, that part starts to drift away, because at the end of the day, that thought in your head just wants to be seen, witnessed, and heard. So rather than shoving it aside, can we lean into that and feel it? That's the invitation there. You could go on a deep dive of IFS. That's just a brief little introduction. So the limitless beliefs visualization. Unfortunately, we don't have time today to go through this yet. I'm going to give you guys the process. There's a QR code here if you want to scan it. It takes you to a free 5-day challenge that walks you through a 15-minute limitless beliefs visualization with integration practices as you go along. But this is work I do for my clients. I'm going to give you guys the whole process right here. So feel free to record this or write it down, whatever you need, or just scan that QR code and then go through the visualization later. But we already learned about the 90-second rule and why it's so important to feel into our body, right? So what I do with these visualizations is I walk you through a little bit of slight hypnosis, if you will. And it's a meditation, and invite you to feel into a negative narrative or a limiting story that plays on loop. And then it's counterintuitive, but we're going to repeat that story as if it were a mantra. And the reason is because we need to process it. The reason why affirmations alone don't work is because we're just focusing on the positive and we're not willing to go into the depths of the psyche and really accept those parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at. So in the limitless beliefs visualization, you'll start with a negative narrative or a limiting belief, close your eyes, repeat it in your mind as a mantra, and then through this process, this visualization, we're going to do something called timeline therapy, where we start to shift that story to the left, to the left, all the way till it disappears. And that is processing. From there, bringing awareness here, back to your center, there's now this new room for growth. And we ask ourselves, what's the opposite of this negative narrative or this limiting belief? And at that point, we create a short mantra out of that. We start to scan it into our body using a body scan, letting the cells of our nervous system know that they are safe and this is who we truly are. And this is the process of rewiring the neural pathways to create new neural networks in your brain. And I know that's science, that's like geeky words and big words, and what does that actually mean? So we know that the subconscious mind makes up 95% of who we are. We now know that 90% of our thoughts are from the day before and they're negative. This is the process right here to sit with those negative thoughts, those negative narratives, those limiting old beliefs, and reshape them, reframe them into empowering, limitless beliefs. So I highly recommend checking this out. It's changed my life, and it's changed my life of my clients as well. This goes back to self-love. This goes back to putting your oxygen mask on first, because otherwise we're just living in this negative perpetual feedback loop, right? So final thoughts, soul-life balance. The question here is, what's one thing I could do on a daily basis to feed my soul? If you take anything away from this, what's one thing I can do to feed my soul? Mindfulness is not a to-do list. You know, I see so many people, myself included, that's why I talk about this. When I first started down this path, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a good spiritual person. I'm going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to do my meditation, breath work, I'm going to journal about my experience, then I'm going to get in my body and do some yoga. I'll go on a walk, get that straight vitamin D from the sun. I'll come back and have my lemon water with apple cider vinegar because it's good for the gut microbiome. You know, it's like check, 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 check. And we now know that's being in the yang energy, where really mindfulness and this whole journey is about building your intuition. It's about being present in the moment. And how do we be present in the moment? We chase our curiosity if we're chasing anything at all, right? How do I feel? What do I need? And then through experimenting with the different modalities of meditation and breath work and journaling and all these different things, over time, we start to be like, oh, I know what I need right now. It's some breath work, or I need a journal, right? And that's how we go about this. So integrating play into your lifestyle. We didn't really keep it too lighthearted, but it is important to know as well, we're not here to just do. We are human beings, right? And in this journey of increasing our mental well-being and whatnot, you gotta remember a play, not take it so serious. So play can look like so many different things, but just finding ways to not take yourself serious, like the lion's breath, right? All these little things, and get in your bodies. So I love this picture of the pelican because when I moved from Silicon Valley to Santa Cruz, I moved to a beach house that was 60 seconds away from the ocean, and I started surfing and paddleboarding all the time. And I would see a flock of pelicans coming right over my head. And I was like, dinosaurs don't exist? Sure they do. Look at these creatures right here. And they just are so majestic, and it always brings like just the biggest smile to my face seeing these pelicans. And what brings probably a bigger smile is the sea otter and the seals. You know, seeing the sea otters out there and out here too, we're in Monterey, make sure you get to the wharf. They have some amazing clam chowder here. Shout out to Fisherman's Grotto, but there's other places as well. You can get it anywhere. But the sea otters are so amazing. I remember once being in the surf lamp, and there was a seal. There was a seal just looking straight up at the sky. And I was looking at the seal. Seal looked at me, and I was thinking, what is that seal thinking about right now? You know, like he or she's got such a different world underground, like looking up at the sky. And you know, the reason why I bring these slides and these stories into this is because it's not necessarily about creating the time and space for meditation or any of the different modalities. It's the simple things. It's the things we often overlook. It's going out for a walk and leaving your phone behind and being at one with nature, feeling the cool breeze on your skin, when this fog burns off, maybe feeling the sun on your skin, any of these things. that bring us back into presence. Eye contact with others. So finally, this is a free gift, 3 undeniably simple practices to practice soul life balance. If you want to check that out, I'll give you guys a second. And soul life balance, just remember the one thing to take away if you're going to take anything at all. How can I feed my soul today? If you're curious about working with me, I do keynotes, breakouts, different sessions with companies, breathwork journeys, one-on-one leadership development. I'm so excited for you guys. I know you're going to have an amazing conference. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you are interested in bringing me in to speak for one of your events, please feel free to reach out. I also do one-on-one leadership development, mindfulness trainings, and of course, deep cathartic trauma release breathwork journeys. You can find all my contact information in the description with this video.